Welcome to today's episode of Between Neens and Deens. My name is Nina, and I'm joined by my best friend, partner, and baby daddy, Dayon.
And together, we're a couple of 20-something-year-olds just trying to navigate this whole first-time parenting thing.
So we're laying it all out there and talking about all the things you wish your parents told you about love, sex, and happiness.
So I just managed to put the baby to sleep.
There's a baby, by the way.
There is a baby, by the way, and that's what we're going to talk about today. This episode is all about the birthing process and how it all went down.
The actual birth, not the plan, the actual birth.
Yeah, because, I mean, nothing really went according to plan.
Not at all. We had a planned home birth, and it ended in a emergency C-section, so, I mean, very not to plan.
Yeah, but I mean, the labor was 4 days, and we really tried to do the home thing.
I feel like going into it, I didn't even really know what a normal labor was, and so, for me, I was like, on day 4, and I was like, hey, this seems long. Like, I don't think this is normal. And everyone was like, yeah, you've had a really bad luck of the draw. Like, this is a rough labor. And I was like, oh, thank you for validating how I feel because this is awful.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you will also probably hear the little baby make some noises every now and then. Can't be avoided.
Yeah,
we're not going to leave him in the room.
Yeah, he's in a bassinet right here next to us. So.
Yeah, so he's here in the room with us, but he's sleeping. But, you know, he might make some squeals every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So basically my labor started kind of with like my mucus plug coming out and like the bloody discharge. Those are kind of the first signs, and that happened after I went to my midwife appointment and she did a cervical check. And so basically that is where she like sticks her fingers in my vagina and like feel how much the cervix is like thinned out or if it's still there. And she was like, oh, okay, like it's like you kind of almost there, like whatever. And then literally the next day my mucus plug came out and then I had bloody discharge. So I was like, okay, it's kicking off.
It's happening.
It's happening. So like that was on April 18th is when like the discharge was happening. I was like, we're full force going into this labor thing. And that day I had like some light cramping. And by the end of the day, it got a little bit more intense. So the light cramping is kind of like a period cramp. Like it's something that's like pretty manageable. And I was like, okay, like I feel something happening. And like I feel like with contractions, like you always look up like, what is it gonna feel like? And everyone's like, you're gonna know what it feels like. And at this point I was like, hey, I don't think these are contractions because it feels like period pain.
Yeah.
Like it's not comfortable, but it's like something I'm familiar with.
There's like no mistaking a contraction.
Yeah, no. Once it finally hit, I was like, oh, hello.
Yeah, there's no mistaking it.
Yeah, so like I mean at this point, like on the 18th, like I'm like really excited, and like you try not to be because you know that like it's not gonna happen like the next day. It could, but usually it's like kind of like a couple days later that you actually go into labor. And so the next day, this is the 19th. Hope you guys are following along. I don't know if the numbers are helpful, but anyways.
April 19th,
I go into what is early labor. So those like cramps turned into contractions throughout the night, and it like felt more intense, and it happens like every couple of minutes. So early labor is like really sporadic. It's not as painful obviously as like your actual active labor contractions, but it's like the beginning stages. That's when you know like your body's like, okay, like we're gonna start doing this now. For me, like my contractions came like every 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 6 minutes. So there was a period of time where it was actually consistently 5 minutes apart. And that's when I actually downloaded this app that I just like went to like contractions in the iPhone app store and like downloaded whatever. And I started tracking it because I was like, okay, like this is 5 minutes apart. That's usually when they tell you to like, okay, like look out for it if it's 5 minutes apart for an hour. And then it decreases to 4 minutes, 3 minutes. Like that's when you know you're like in active labor. So I was like tracking them, but then it went back up to like 8 minutes apart. And so I was like, okay, like I think I'm almost there, but like not really. Like my body's just like taking its time, whatever. It's just very, very sporadic at this point.
Yeah.
And so like...
It's still early.
Yeah, it's still early. And like at this point, I texted our doula, and she's like kind of the first person of contact, like before I would contact my midwives. And so I contacted her and I told her like what was happening. And she was like, okay, like that's great. Like, you know, like maybe take a shower and like that will help like ease the pain. And at this point, like it really wasn't that painful yet. Like I would have to like take a moment and like breathe through it. But I was able to like use all the breathing exercises I had learned and like, you know, like really take like a deep breath and like exhale and like get through it.
I can't remember, but you took a bath when that was happening.
Yeah,
too,
I took a bath, and like that like helped ease it, and so I was like able to stay relatively calm during this time. And then by nighttime, my doula was like, okay, like, let's just call the midwives and update them so they know, like, what's happening. Like, you're not in active labor, but they should just know so that, like, you know, like, if in the middle of the night, like, it does ramp up, that they're on the same page.
That they're aware.
Yeah. So, like, we called them, updated them, and that was kind of it. Like, that whole day and that whole night was kind of just, like, the same kind of sporadic, slightly more intense contractions, but really not, like, anything super, super painful yet. I was also using, like, a TENS machine. It's essentially, like, a machine that you patch to your body in different places, and it, like, it honestly causes pain, but then it's, like, pain that you can control. You can, like, amp it up or, like, turn it down, and it kind of takes your mind off of the other pain that's happening. So, like, that's how it helps. It's very weird to, like, add more pain to the pain that you're already causing.
It's kind of like electrotherapy. It
Yeah.
like shocks your muscles and it makes it like tense up and
Yeah.
stuff.
Like, it honestly isn't my favorite thing. I think, like, after a while,
It feels weird. It's like little
Yeah.
needles, right? Like you're going
like,
down.
at first, like, in the first couple of days, I was like, okay, like, yes, this really helps. And then, I mean, by day 4, you know, you're, like, wearing the same thing. It's the same type of pain. And I was just like, I can't take this anymore. But anyway, so I was using that in the beginning, and it was helping. It was helping then. And so I wake up the next morning, and my contractions are really intense. And, like, at this point, it's like I can't really breathe through it. I kept telling myself, like, you know, it's like an ocean wave. It's gonna roll over you, and it's gonna be okay, and don't fight it. Like, I had all these techniques in my head that were supposed to help me through it, but it was so, so, so painful. Like, it was so hard. And
You weren't
so
prepared for how intense it really was.
no, and, like,
Yeah.
that's the thing, is that, like, it's supposed to get this intense, you know, but when it gets this intense, that's when it regulates, and that's when it's, like, that 5, 4, 3-minute interval, and then you're like, I'm in active labor, the midwives need to come now and, like, deliver this baby, or, like, you need to go to the hospital if that's what you're doing. And so, like, for me, like, it just didn't regulate, and so I was experiencing the same type of intense contractions, but not going into active labor. And so, like, that's where, like, a lot of my pain kind of came from. And, like, I ended up having, like, looking at the app, we weren't able to really document all of them, but what we had documented was, like, 300 plus contractions. And that is a lot. Like, that is
Yeah.
so much pain, not including, like, you know, the ones that happen in the middle of the night, because when you're sleeping, like, I would wake up every single contraction, so I wasn't actually sleeping. Like, it was
Yeah.
so incredibly painful. And, like, I didn't know that was, like, not normal, or that, like, that was a lot
Yeah,
to take
we wouldn't
on.
know because like all of this was like our first time
Yeah.
going through it, and yeah, it was crazy. I really thought that we were gonna have a 420 baby. Like it was,
Yeah, because it was really intense, and
Yeah, and
everyone thought it too.
and they were pretty close. Like they were 5 minutes apart. They were kind of like getting more consistent, and then like
And then all of a sudden
and
it
then
would
it
go
would
back
like
up to 8.
7 minutes,
Yeah.
8 minutes, yeah. And
It was
then,
very frustrating, and I think that's also part of it too, is that, like, you need to be relaxed through it. And for me, I think because it was so painful, and, like, it wasn't regulating, and it had been some time already, that, like, I was, like, getting very frustrated with my
Yeah.
body. And I think that's not what you're supposed to do.
You kinda
That's
get,
the
like,
exact
fed up,
opposite.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got very fed up. And, like, I mean, to be fair, like, when our doula was there, she was amazing. Like, she really helped me, like, breathe through them. And, like, it's kind of like, you know how you carry tension, like, in your body, and, like, for me, it's in my shoulders, so I don't even realize when, like, my shoulders are, like, tight. And so, like, for her to be able to, like, coach me through, like, every contraction and, like, tell me to breathe, like, I honestly, like, needed it, because in that moment, like, I couldn't think, like, okay, you need to breathe through this. Like, it was just so painful.
And it was like anything that I would say would just make it worse.
It was like we knew this going into it.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't be
That's why we got a
probably the
doula.
best. Yeah, and, like, honestly, like, if you take anything from this whole thing, is, like, get a doula. Especially if you have any doubt that, like, your partner might not be able to support you. Like, I love you, but we knew that you probably wouldn't be the best at supporting me through this, because you wouldn't know what to do. And, like, you've tried to, like, you know, give me massages before, and I'm like, nope, that's not it.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm just, like,
It's
in
too
this
firm or like too.
yeah, it's just, like, it's never enough. And, like, Dan would do this thing where I'm breathing, and he would hold my head and then get his head as close to mine as possible in my airspace. And, like, it was just the most frustrating thing, because I'm like,
I really tried to help.
I know, and it's like, I know that you did it out of love, and I know that for you, that was your way of supporting and, like, helping me.
Yeah.
And, like, in maybe any other situation would have been fine, but in a situation where I need to breathe, I was just like, this is so annoying. Get out of my space. And so, yeah. So,
I mean, it is honestly so difficult to like be that partner and like to really console you, because it feels like there's nothing I can really say or do, because I can't make your pain go away as much as I want it to. And like, also just comes from like, I'm not in a position of like experience or expertise. So if I tell you it's all gonna be okay, like just breathe through it, you'll be like, what the fuck do you know?
Yeah, dude, like this shit hurts so much. You have no idea. Like, I think that was also a lot of my frustration. Like a lot of my frustration was just like, why is this happening? Like, this is so painful. And so,
but it was honestly the worst when it was just me and you alone. The moment a doula came, like, I'm not even gonna lie, I got the short end of the stick. The doula could say the same things that I was saying, but it would help you a lot more than if I was saying it. So like,
Artie was amazing.
She was so helpful. It was
insane. And I mean, I don't know.
I was like calling her because I was like, please just come. Like, I need help. Like, I'm trying everything that I can, but
in that moment, I was very upset with you. But at the end of the day, like, it's not your fault. It's like your first birth as well. You don't know what to do. I probably wouldn't know what to do if I was in your position. So it's just that's the situation.
Yeah, and it's an intense situation. It's just, you can never really prepare for it.
Yeah. So we're on the 20th. So this is the day that, like, you know, it's more intense, and we think the baby might be coming this day, and we set up the birth pool, or you set it up.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like when we're like, okay, like, it's probably gonna happen. I'm in the birth pool. I'm contracting in there. It actually feels really nice to be in the birth pool and to, like, be in warm water. Like, it actually helps, like, quite a bit. Like, it still is very, very painful, obviously, but it's way better than, like, laying in your bed. And so at this point, they're still inconsistent, haven't regulated. And at this point, Artie has come over. This is the first time that she comes over. But there's nothing that my body can do to regulate it. Like, there's nothing that we can do to, like, speed it up, to, like, get to that place of active labor. And so we decided to call the midwives. And they were like, oh, okay, like, it sounds like they're gonna regulate really soon. So you're probably gonna go into labor tonight or tomorrow morning. So we'll just look forward to your call. Like, it'll be great. We're gonna deliver this baby today. And so, like, that kind of gave me the, like, reassurance, like, okay, like, the end of the rainbow is coming soon, you know? Like, they think that it's gonna come soon. And, like, there's no way you can really know, but based on what my body was doing, like, it was so intense, and it was so unbelievably painful. And, like, at this point, like, I'm crying.
Yeah.
Like, I've been crying through a lot of the contractions. It was so, so painful. And so, like, obviously, I wake up, hasn't regulated, and it's actually really funny, because when we went to sleep, Dan was like, I'm going to be here with you through all of this. Like, it's going to be fine. And then, of course, he just goes to sleep. And in the middle of the night, I'm literally going through, like, the most painful contractions. And I'm, like, punching him. And I'm like, wake up. Like, help me. And he just is, like, dead asleep.
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah, again, can't blame you. Like, you're tired, too.
Yeah.
But anyways, so the next morning, it gets even more intense. I know I just keep saying that, but it really does. It is just the worst. It was so painful. Still inconsistent, and at 9 a.m. that's when I tell Dayon pineapples.
Yeah, which is our safe word.
It's our safe word for me saying I need pain management. I can't do this anymore. And so at 10 a.m. we end up going to the hospital. And so there actually is a hospital really close to our house, but we ended up going to this other hospital a little bit further, because that's one where, like, our doula could actually be there. And it's also, like, not a religious hospital, which we had never really considered before. But when you do have, like, a religious hospital and it wasn't, like, a part of, like, the other hospital unions, then they kind of have, like, different jurisdiction and, like, things that they do and, like, protocol. So we were like, oh, maybe we don't want to do that.
And another selling point was just that the hospital that we did end up going to is specifically only for laboring.
Yeah. So there's no, like, COVID patients or anything like that.
The hospital close to our house, like, you got all types of patients. Actually, it's like the hub for COVID-19 patients. Yeah.
So yeah, good thing we didn't go to that hospital. But anyway, so we called our doula and we called our midwives, and the doula was like, hey, just, like, keep me posted. And the midwife was like, okay, like, I'll meet you at the hospital and we can go over your options. I'll check your cervix to see, like, how much you're dilated. And so we went in 10 a.m. and I was 3 centimeters dilated. So that was actually very impressive to me, because I was like, it's been so stagnant and so, like, whatever.
That you thought you weren't even going to be
I thought I wasn't even going to be dilated. That I was like, okay, like, it's actually, you know, like, it's moving, it's happening. And so she was like, hey, your options are either you can take morphine and gravel. It's just like a shot in your butt. You can take that now, you can get some sleep, and then you're gonna most likely go into active labor after that because your body just needs some rest right now. And like, to be fair, like I wasn't really sleeping because I was like having contractions throughout the night for,
and they were intense.
Like intense contractions for like 2 nights now. And I wasn't really eating because I couldn't really eat, and so like I was just like exhausted at this point. So I was like, okay, like that's a solid option. The other option is that I could get admitted into the hospital right then, and then we would do like the epidural, like oxytocin, like have the baby that night. Like it would be like a hospital birth. And so there was a part of me that did kind of want to get admitted into the hospital because I was like, I can't handle this anymore. You know, like I can't do this. But we talked about it, and I think you were very much like, it's going to happen, you know, like it's going to happen any second now. And I think you really wanted to have like the home birth and believe that we could still do it, whereas
I was really hopeful. I thought it was gonna happen just because like your contractions were so intense, and it did go for like an hour where it was 5 minutes apart, and then the whole theory of like your body just needing a chance to rest made a lot of sense to me. That's why I thought like if we just did the morphine shot and you could have enough time to like rest through it, that the next day you'd be able to push our baby out.
And I think for me, like I didn't know what to do because I was like, I want to believe that, you know, like I want to have the home birth that we planned, but at the same time, like you don't understand what's happening to my body and the like amount of pain that I feel. Like, can I continue? Like, I don't know. And so like it was a really hard decision to make, but I was like, okay, you know what, let's just try the morphine, and if it doesn't work, then we can go to the hospital, and then at that point we'll do like the epidural and all of that. And so I got the morphine shot. And this is the second time I've ever had morphine. The first time was when I had kidney stones a couple years ago. And morphine is honestly, you feel great. Like, you feel amazing. And I still felt my contractions, but they weren't as intense. So, like, I couldn't tell you if it was, like, getting more intense or, like, if it was regulating or anything like that. Like, I couldn't really tell. But the thing is, like, they give you morphine and Gravol because morphine tends to make you nauseous. And Gravol helps with the nausea. But I was way too nauseous. Like, I don't know if it was just my body or whatever, but like I chowed down on a breakfast burrito like right after we got the shot because I was like, yay, I can finally like eat and get some rest. Ate the breakfast burrito, puked the breakfast burrito, couldn't really sleep because I was so nauseous.
You couldn't even hold water.
Yeah, I think Dan like made me a smoothie, puked that up, water, puked that up. Like I couldn't hold anything down, and that was literally from like 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. was just constant puking. I went back in the tub, tried to go into active labor, and it didn't happen. Like, I woke up from my nap and it didn't happen. And like at this point, it was just so painful that I was crying through every single contraction. And our doula came over because she had like gone home that night to like get some rest. She came over because Dan was like, Nina's puking and I don't know what to do.
And she's yelling at me. Everything I do,
it was so awful. It was so awful. And like at this point, like I'm very frustrated, you know, like because I thought that if I had taken the morphine that like obviously there was a chance that it wouldn't work out, but I was just like, my body's so close, you know? And so like I was just so frustrated because I was like, what do you want? Like, what do you need? And like I was so tired because I was puking everything. Like I didn't have any food in me. Like I was just like at my end. Like at my wit's end.
And I think me being so hopeful didn't make it better because I kept just going like, I really like I can see it happening.
And I'm like, how do you not? But like I think that was what was also very frustrating for me, was because I was harboring some resentment because I had said pineapples and we had agreed that when I said pineapples, that meant that I had enough. And like he somehow convinced me to like get the morphine and like go home and like
but that's the thing, it wasn't my intention to,
I know it wasn't your intention. And like, but I think for me, like what I wish you understood in that moment was that
is done.
That it's like this, like, you know, like I wanted this too. I wanted the home birth. I wanted a natural birth, but like I couldn't do it. And like that's what pineapples was supposed to mean. And like I just like so it was very very frustrating. I do regret that.
I'm like really sorry about that.
Well, it ends up spiraling into much worse. You think it's bad now, but it gets even worse. So basically our midwife comes over because we're like, we don't know what to do. We did the morphine and Gravol, nothing's happening.
At this point, they were 5 to 6 minutes apart, happening for around a minute. Like the contractions were happening for a minute and like 30 seconds. So they were like nice long contractions. It felt fairly consistent, but then there would be times where it would change.
And then it goes back up to 8 minutes for one. And then it's like, we're like, okay, well, just throw all of that away. We'll just start over again. So our midwife comes over. This is now like 8 p.m. And
this is on the 21st.
This is on the 21st. And she checks my cervix. It's still 3 centimeters dilated. So at this point, I'm like, fuck this. Yeah. This is not working. After hours
of pushing that, it's the same as where it was before.
It's this is the 21st, and it started on the 19th. Light cramping started on the 18th. So it's just it's been days now of just intense pain, no sleep, and basically she was like, okay, now your option would be to stay here and continue doing this.
I just feel ridiculous right now.
Or we can go to the hospital and do the things that we discussed. We can do the oxytocin to get your labor going. We can do the epidural because this is clearly very painful for you.
Yeah.
And we'll have a hospital birth. And so I was like, yes, let's do that. Great. And so we pack up everything. We get to the hospital at 11 p.m. And at 11 p.m. until 3 a.m., I am in a room. At this point, I think I'm in a room where things are gonna happen, but it's actually just the room downstairs that they keep you in
until the actual room is ready.
Until the actual room is ready. So the actual birthing rooms are upstairs, and I guess they're just were a lot of women that were giving birth at that moment in time. 3 women were pushing at that moment in time, so they didn't have anything open. So I didn't think it was gonna be 4 hours. But I was literally in this room for 4 hours with our doula and Dayon, crying, fucking bawling through these contractions because, okay, at this point I should describe the contractions. So usually, it's in your vagina, it's that really tight feeling, and it's you hear people wailing through it, and that's normal. That's an intense contraction. Some people get back labor, which is really intense pain in your back. And that was me. So I had both my uterus pain and my back pain. And the back pain got progressively worse and worse and worse as the contractions got worse. So at this point, I don't even really feel anything in my uterus happening because the back pain was so much worse. It actually felt... I can't even describe what it felt like. It was so painful. And I didn't really know what to do about it. But every single time that I got a contraction, I literally felt like my spine was going to break. And that isn't super normal. I think it's something that does happen to people, and we learn later that it's because the baby's head was facing the wrong way. So usually the baby's face would be facing your spine, and then his skull would be facing where your belly button is. But for me, his head was the other way around. So his skull was actually against my spine. So if you think about just how hard that is, bone to bone, and then he's pushing his head back with every contraction, and so he's just pushing his head into my spine with every single contraction, and it was so unbelievably painful. And we didn't know that was something the reason why. At this point, at this point we're just oh, okay, it's a lot of back pain with your contractions.
So speaking of unpredictable circumstances, this is a great segue on how unpredictable the future is, and this is why insurance exists in the first place.
Life insurance. And I mean, this is very on brand for what we're talking about, because life insurance is really important to think about, especially when you're bringing life into this world, because you want to make sure that if anything happens to you, that one, you're taken care of, but should anything even more dramatic happen, that your loved ones are taken care of. And so with Policy Genius, you can check out their website, but basically you can shop around for different insurance policies, and it's totally free. They compare it all for you so that you can get the best policy possible. So I would definitely 10 out of 10 highly recommend that you get some life insurance. We both have life insurance, and it's really important, not just for yourself, but also, like I said, to take care of your loved ones if anything should happen to yourself.
Basically, it provides a tax-free lump sum of money for your loved ones after your death, so you can make sure that they're able to pay everyday bills, such as children's college costs or final expenses, things like that.
You want to make sure you're not leaving them hanging.
Yeah, and I mean, funerals are expensive too.
Yeah, I mean, no one wants to think about it, but you have to think about it. So outside of our situation, life is really unpredictable and scary right now. So they've actually seen a huge jump in people searching for life insurance. So if you're one of those people and you don't know where to start, definitely head to policygenius.com and get yourself a quote, compare a bunch of policies. It's the best way to go about it. So jumping back into our birthing story.
We're still downstairs.
They
actually put you on like the IV so you can get some fluids.
Yeah, I got
you couldn't
fluids.
hold down water, so then they were hydrating you through your veins, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, like, that is literally nothing. That does nothing for me.
Yeah.
So at 3 a.m., they finally like, yay, we have a birthing seat for you. And so we go upstairs, and it's still like half an hour to an hour before like the anesthesiologist comes to give me an epidural. And thankfully, I got an epidural before they put me on oxytocin. And it was actually our doula that suggested that, which like call. It was a great call because like the oxytocin would accelerate your contractions so that you like actually get dilated, and like you would feel all of that. Like it would just be so painful if you weren't on like any pain management. And so I managed to get the epidural first, so I couldn't really feel anything, which was great. And then I had the oxytocin, and so they usually go up to like a level 20, like that's kind of the max that they'll go up to, and usually that's what women need in order to like get into active labor. But for me, they only had to go up to level 5, which is actually very low. And so they were saying that like all my body really did need was to just relax a little bit, and it would have been able to go into active labor. But I think because of the intense pain, because his head was posterior, because his like skull was to my spine, like I couldn't relax because it was just too painful.
Yeah, and your contractions were intense as well, like because they had you hooked up to that like I think it's called like a Taka machine or Toka or something.
Yeah.
And it like measures out your contractions, and they were like quite high. Like
they were really intense, yeah. And it was also like once I got the epidural, like my whole body got so itchy. Like they said that was like a side effect, but it was oh my god, it was so itchy. Like our doula was saying that like I was the only person that she's ever had that's actually been itchy while they're on the epidural. Like it's happened like afterwards where they're like, oh, like I came off it and I got really itchy, but I was the only person that was itchy during it, and I like couldn't stop scratching myself. It was just yeah, it was rough. And so basically at this point, like my water breaks. It literally felt like someone like smashed a water balloon like against my butt. So my water breaks, and I'm like so happy because I'm like, yay, okay, finally, like this is happening. Yeah. And like our midwife comes, she checks, and I'm 9.5 centimeters dilated. So I'm like basically there. She's like, okay, we're gonna have you push, and I'm gonna like basically stick my fingers in there and like push this one little lip of like your cervix so that like so it can go over his head, and then like you're like good to like actually push him out. So we're doing that. I'm pushing, and I'm like, yes, I'm finally gonna meet my baby. This is amazing. And I'm pushing, and nothing is happening. And so she's finally like, okay, let's bring in the OB. He's going to just look at everything and make sure that, like everything's okay. So then we can keep pushing. And so he comes, and he was like...
This was before, because you were pushing for quite some time. But then there were certain positions where as you were pushing, the heart rate of our baby was dropping.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, yes, you're right. That's why. Okay, see, my memory's a little bit foggy now.
Well, that's okay.
If you can remember, I have not eaten anything. Yeah. And I had literally no energy. So, like, pushing was actually very difficult for me because it took everything out of me to, like, try and muster up some energy for this. So, yeah, so the OB comes, and they honestly, like, I feel like they made it seem like not a very big deal because they were like, oh, like, his heart rate is just, like, dropping. Like, that actually is, like, very concerning, but to me I was just like, oh, okay, like,
no,
sure.
It was like, yeah, like I was concerned with each contraction it was dropping.
Yeah, I wasn't quite a bit. I wasn't really aware of that.
But you weren't looking at the monitor. Like,
yeah, that's true. Because I'm just like focused on pushing, and then they're like, okay, we're just gonna bring the OB in.
Yeah, and I can just kind of see that like everyone was like low-key concerned, but you know how they don't really show their emotions or don't want to say anything?
And that's probably why I didn't catch on to it.
Yeah, so I was like,
but then she like she stuck a like heart rate monitor kind of like on his head, like right where my vagina is basically, because like before that they were detecting his heart from like through my stomach, and with every push like it just kept moving, and I was so itchy, and like it just wasn't working right. And so like they put one on his head, and then like you can actually like hear his heart rate. And I think that for me was when I was actually like, oh, okay, like this is a concern. Yeah. And so the OB comes, and he feels around, and he's like, oh, the baby is posterior. And I'm like, wow, fucking great. Finally we solved why this is so painful for me. So the baby's posterior, which at first I didn't think was like, I was like, okay, like that's just causing me a lot of pain, but it's fine. He's going to come out fine. But he was like, well, basically like because of his position, like the baby's head will come out kind of like oval shape, but your birthing canal is round. And so like he also is a larger baby. Like, his head is quite large. And, like, just looking at my stomach, like, he's quite long as well. And so he was like, this is a bigger baby. And already he's posterior. So this is going to be quite difficult. He needs to turn around. Like, he needs to face the other way. And you can push. And sometimes the baby will turn around. So you can try that. And I was like, great, let's do that. And then he was like, if not, we have 2 options. And the first option would be to take forceps and turn the baby's head.
Yeah, manually rotate him.
And then pull him out. Would I have to push him?
No, they said with vacuum too. Oh, you would have to push as well, but then
and I would get an episiotomy.
Yeah.
Where they would cut
They'd have to open it up a little bit more.
Yeah, so that was option number 1, if I couldn't rotate him with my pushing. Option 2 was get a C-section. And at this point, I'm just like, I honestly feel so numb inside. Like, I just, like, I don't... Like, I'm so tired. Like, I'm so tired. I'm like, I just want this baby out of me. Like, I didn't know what else to do. But I was like, okay, let's try pushing. Because I might as well. I'm already here. You know, like, he might turn around, hopefully. And so... Another
reason, I guess just to explain, like, why it is significantly harder when a baby is posterior. The way the OB was explaining to me is, like, you would essentially want, like, the baby to, like, be facing the other way. Because to get out through that pelvic bone, you should be, like, hunched over. But then when you're flipped the other way, it's really difficult for you to, like, move your head backwards. And that's where his skull would be hitting on your spine. And that's why it was extremely painful on your back.
And also that's why his heart rate was dropping, no?
Well, I think so, yeah. Probably because, like, with the contractions and then with his direction,
so yeah.
It's like maybe he was, like, unable to breathe in certain contractions, yeah.
So basically, I continued to push for another hour. And
it felt promising too, because when you did push for another hour, you got into a position where you were uncomfortable before, but it was on hands and knees, and the heart rate was doing well. Like, our baby's heart rate was doing well, and I can, like, see, like, all the movement. Like, it looked like it was about to just, like, pop out. You know what I mean? Like, everything was, like, spreading out or.
And that's the thing, is, like, it just was such a domino effect of events. Like, if we had gone into the hospital earlier, you know, like, when it was morphine or gravel or get admitted to the hospital, when I had more energy, maybe I could have pushed him out. But even then it probably wouldn't have. But the fact that I had puked out everything in my system for the whole day, for all of the 21st, you know, like, I had literally nothing in my system. I had no energy. I was so sleep deprived. Like, this was, like, day 4 at this point, because it was 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. that we were in that room downstairs. And then this is the 22nd. Like, we're on the 22nd. This is day 4 of labor. Yeah. And I had nothing in me. So, like, maybe I would have been able to push. But I also just think the likelihood of him rotating was just so not likely.
Yeah. And he's a big baby.
He's a big baby.
Your tummy was big.
Yeah, and it was so painful. Like, it was so painful. Like, not just, like, in, obviously, like, my vagina, but also, like, with his head against my back, and then also, like, his feet were pushing against my ribs as well. And
he's long, man. He's tall.
Yeah, he was really tall. And, like, it just, like, at that point, like, I had an epidural, but also, like, we kind of stopped pumping the epidural once I started pushing, because you need to be able to kind of feel what you're doing. So, like, I could feel all of that pain again, and it was just too much. So, like, it got to the point where they were like, okay, this isn't working. And it had been an hour, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And so the OB came back in, and Dayan was like, okay, like, what do you think is the best option? You know, like, what has the best rate of success, in your opinion, either doing, like, the forceps or the C-section? And he was like, I mean, if we do the forceps, like, we could try, and it might work. But then if it doesn't work, we end up doing a C-section. So then you end up having even more
stuff to heal from.
Yeah, more stuff to heal from, and it's not guaranteed. Whereas a C-section, you know, is like, it's safer and it's guaranteed. And so I was like, okay, done, C-section, let's go. And so they wheel me off, and I'm actually very nauseous at this point. So I, like, close my eyes. They wheel me off, and it's just this big white room, and I honestly don't, like, I'm just looking up, because, like, I don't see much, and there's just a lot of people around me. There's nurses, there's other people, there's another anesthesiologist, there's the OB.
And I'm extremely emotional at this point as well.
Oh, once they tell me, the moment that they tell me, like, the first time that you might need to get a C-section, I just stopped looking at Dan. Like, I couldn't keep it together, because I knew that you were going to be so emotional. And
so,
like,
because I guess just like the type of person I am, I always think the worst. I'm like the type of person that if I hop on a plane, I always think it's gonna go down. I gotta say bye to all my friends,
yeah,
even if I'm gone for just a week. But like, yeah, it's just like surgeries are scary to me. It's like I don't know if you're gonna make it back, and that was like the scariest thing.
yeah.
Was, like,
And I knew that about you, so that's why I was like, I can't look at you. I need to, like, this is a decision that needs to be made. You know, like I
yeah,
don't have
of
any
course.
other choice. And so like I was like, you just need to, like like
And the
my
thing
frame
is,
of
I
mind
didn't.
was just like, you just need to go in and do it.
Yeah, and I didn't want to scare you. Like I didn't like, and I tried to like conceal my emotions
Yeah,
and like
no,
not.
I know who you are. I knew
Yeah.
that it would make you very, very emotional. So I just, yeah.
I just wanted everything to be okay. Like at the end of the day, I
Yeah.
just wanted like our baby to be delivered
Yeah.
and for us to be like healthy and happy. And
I think at that point I just became very detached because even Artie was talking to me, like our doula was talking to me, and like I just was so like I can't,
yeah,
like I just can't interact with people right now. Like
you were done. You were
yeah.
yeah. You reached the boiling point, the threshold.
But it was also just the fact that I was like, I don't want to do this, but I have to.
Yeah.
And if I like continue to talk
There's no
about
turning
it,
back.
yeah, like if I talk to people about it right now, like it's gonna make me emotional. It's gonna make me like scared or whatever. But I was like, you just like I have to just go
You
in
were
and
so
do
tough,
this.
honestly, such a champ.
So
Like throughout the whole thing.
yeah. So I mean, we go into this room, and I will be honest, I did not research as much as I should have about the potential possibility of an emergency C-section.
We didn't expect for that to happen.
Literally, like, I can't say that it shouldn't have happened, but it was like I was very low risk, and I was measuring correctly, and there was no reason to be concerned. And we were planning a home birth. Like it was,
and everything seemed to be progressing fine. Honestly, like from like your mucus plug to like the bloody show, the contractions happening. I really thought everything was gonna progress like very not easily, but like it would just flow.
Yeah,
you know
and
what
it wasn't just us thinking that. Like it was like our midwives as well, and everyone was like, "Yeah, this is gonna be a pretty easy birth for you." And I was like, "Yeah." I let that get to my head, and I was like, "Cool, I don't have to research all the scary possibilities."
And then they're like, "We're so sorry you were dealt the shittiest card."
Yeah. But anyway, so I go into surgery, and like I said, like I wasn't really paying attention to anything. Like people were talking to me, but my head was just so like, you need to just get this done. Like I just couldn't allow myself to like get emotional. And so basically they pumped more drugs into me through like my little IV, which is like where I had like my epidural before. So they froze my whole midsection, which I was like, okay, like, you know what? A C-section is scary, but you know, you're not gonna feel anything. They're gonna stitch you up. It's gonna be fine. And when they put the drugs in me, like you just feel like chills like down your back. And he was like, you're gonna feel like a lot of shakes and like chills, and that's gonna be normal, and don't fight it. Just let it happen, let it wash over you. And I was like, okay, you know, like I'm gonna be shaking a little bit. It was uncontrollable shaking. Like it was shaking like nothing I'd ever experienced before.
And at this point too, like the early, like when they first brought you in the room, I wasn't allowed in, so I was in a waiting room.
Yeah, I was just with my midwife and the anesthesiologist. Like those two were the ones talking to me. Everyone else was like doing stuff around my body.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Artie, our doula, was also not allowed.
Yeah, at that point, like I didn't see her anymore.
Yeah.
Because she couldn't see us in recovery.
Which sucks because she was like helping us through the whole process and like didn't get a chance to meet the baby.
But that's because of like the whole COVID situation. Yeah. Like normally she would be able to be with us like in recovery and stuff like that. But it's just because they're limiting like the number of people that can be your support person, whatever. So once they get me pumped with all the drugs and I'm shaking, that's when Dayon comes in. And they warned him, they told him that I was gonna be shaking a lot. But it wasn't like it wasn't just like your teeth chattering. It was my teeth chattering, but also like my arms, like I literally was like my whole body, like well my whole upper body.
Yeah.
It was actually just like
your hands were spread out, like you look like
I was like on the cross.
On the cross, yeah. You were just like an exorcism. Just,
yeah,
like,
I was literally like my whole body was like aggressively shaking.
Yeah.
Like I can't even describe it, like because I just didn't think it would be that aggressive. And like you're trying not to fight it, but it's also just your body's natural instinct to like try to like hold it down and like not move that much. But anyways, so Dayon comes in and he was like, "It's gonna be okay, baby," and like I'm just like like I'm just sitting there shaking. And then eventually they get started. Like it all moves like pretty quickly.
Yeah.
They get started and I don't feel anything obviously. And then the anesthesiologist is like, "You're gonna feel some pressure in your rib cage," as they push his butt out. And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, whatever." Like, you know, like that's to be expected. And then all of a sudden I feel like just like this pounding on my chest. Like it was literally like I thought he was gonna break my ribs, and I was like, like I couldn't.
Screaming.
Yeah, I was screaming, and like the anesthesiologist,
he was so concerned.
He was so concerned. He was like, pain? You feel pain? And I was like, yes. And he was like, what kind of pain? And I was like, it was just so much pressure. And he was like, I told you this was gonna happen, and I was like, not like this. And it was so painful because it literally felt like he was like gonna squish my whole body, but he basically had to like push the baby's butt from my ribs all the way down to like my pelvic bone.
What I'm curious about is, was he doing that like from the inside or from the outside?
From the outside, I think.
Okay, because I wasn't looking.
No, because somebody has forceps on his head.
On his head, right?
And then he's pushing his butt out.
Yeah.
So they did end up using forceps. But to be fair, it's like, I mean, the hole that they cut, like the incision is quite small. So like to push this big baby out is like I get why they had to push that hard, but it was like, it wasn't just like, oh, okay, like it's like quick like a piercing, it's gonna be like 1-2 seconds. It was like 10 to 15 seconds of like intense pounding on my chest. Oh my god, it was so painful. And so I wasn't expecting that at all, and that happened. And then they asked Dayon if he wanted to see the baby come out, and knowing you, I was like, I don't know if you're going to, but I was like, you should. And
I was like, in my own head, I was thinking, like, am I going to be able to unsee this? Like, is it going to be, like, extremely disgusting? Like, what's going on down there? You know what I mean? Because they have the sheet up.
Yeah, they put the sheet up.
And then, so, like, you can't see, but then I'm tall enough to, like, peek over. So I did end up
Our midwife
over.
Was like, you should look.
Yeah, she was like, you should do it. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'll do it. And I looked over, and I can, like, see, like, half of his body coming out of that, like, slit, like, below your belly button. And I'm like, this is insane. And, like, it wasn't extremely gruesome. Like, it felt like clean, and like it just made sense. It was like there's a slit, the baby's coming out of that hole. It's like nothing crazy, but it was just such, like, I didn't expect for it to be like as magical or like as like overwhelmingly beautiful as like what you imagine a vaginal birth would be like, right? Where it's like you see the baby get pushed out, and you're like, oh my god, like you're like extremely happy. But I would say it was like, I mean, I don't know what it felt like to have a vaginal birth, but I would say that it was an equal feeling of like, oh my god, this is our baby. This is like amazing. So at the end of the day, like, when you pulled the baby out and like showed him us, like we were just like, man.
So like Dayon obviously saw him first, and then they put the baby up so that I could see him.
They like hang him over.
Yeah, they gotta hang him over, and like I could see him, and like I was watching your face while you were watching pull him out, and then I saw the baby, and like you were crying, and then I was crying, and then like I was like, it's over, it's finally fucking over. But, you know, like
I haven't cried in that way, and like I can't even explain the type of like crying I had. It was like tears of happiness, but it was like on a whole nother level. Like I don't know if you felt that way as well, because you were like probably quite drugged up, but like for me it was just like honestly the most amazing feeling. Like just like to finally meet this person and see his face, and like see that everything looks okay, you know what I mean? Like he looks healthy, and I was just like kind of like, it was like a screaming cry. It was like, you know what I mean? I was like, like crying. So like it was interesting, and it was just like such an amazing feeling.
I think for me it was like, I did feel that happiness, but for me it was also relief, because it was finally over. And I remember seeing his face for the first time, and like the first thing that popped in my head was like, he looks like my dad.
Crazy.
But so then after that, like they stitched me up, and I'm still uncontrollably shaking. So it was pretty rough. Like I couldn't hold the baby. Like they asked me if I wanted to. Like right after they pulled him out, obviously like the pediatrician like looked him over, and like they wiped him down like on like their table or whatever. So it's not like they pulled him out and immediately plopped him on me. Like they had to take him to the other corner of the room and like examine him. But
there's also did they always have that screen up there? But there was a screen in front of you.
Oh yeah, I can see it.
Oh, you didn't look at it?
I could. It was too hard for me to look at it. I think it was like where it was positioned.
Like, I don't know if it was like a camera that like, because it followed him like everywhere he went. So when they weighed him, and when they like did all the measurements.
I tried to look at it, but I think it was at an angle where it was really, really, really hard for me to see it. So like I couldn't, with my shaking and everything, I couldn't do it. So they brought the baby over, and they were like, oh, like let's like put him on your chest. But at that point I was shaking so much. I legit was like, I'm gonna drop him. I have literally no control over my body, and like the space that I had to put him on my chest was like my boob up. So like he was gonna be like on my neck basically. So I was just like, I can't like, how am I supposed to hold him?
That's why I offered him, like, should I do skin to skin? They're like, oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, I was
so
like,
I ripped off my shirt right there.
I was like, let Dayon hold him. I was like, somebody should hold him.
Yeah, and then
I mean, like, yeah, that kind of
funny
sucks
too,
for me, but
because I was like, this to the nurse, I'm like, this is my first time holding a baby, so tell me how to do it.
Yeah, I don't know. It sucks for me because I was like, obviously I wanted to be able to like hold my baby.
Yeah.
But I just was like, I don't want to drop him, and like I just so.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, I mean, you were completely numb, so.
But I'm glad that you were able to still, and like obviously I like saw him, and the shakes were still really bad at this point, and they were like stitching me up. So stitching me up took about like 10 minutes, I would say.
It was pretty quick, I think. Yeah.
It was pretty quick, but still, I was like watching the clock, and I was like, please let this be over.
I glanced over as well. I like saw them pull out, like your placenta was on the table, and like. But like, you can see like the thickness of the skin. It's almost like we watched enough botched like beforehand for me to be like desensitized to like surgeries. Yeah. But yeah, like it was pretty much that. They were just like sewing up your skin, and it was crazy. Yeah,
for me it was just because I was like, I need this to be over because it was fast, but it was also, so long as they're stitching me up, I still have drugs in my system that's making me shake, and at this point like my jaw hurts so much because like I'm shaking and I'm chattering, but I'm trying to like fight it. But I like keep having to tell myself like just give into it, but it's so hard.
Because when you give into it, it just gets more aggressive, no?
Yeah, it was painful in its own way. So after they stitched me up, they like wheeled me into the recovery room, and that's when I like actually was like able to like hold my baby, and like he breastfed, like he actually latched, which was great. And I was like starting to feel parts of my body again, like I could wiggle my toes. But that is our whole birth story. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I noticed that as we're talking about this, I get quite emotional at certain points. I'm sure you can hear it in my voice, but like, I feel like all the other times I've talked about it, like I haven't. And I think that just the more that I like think about it, the more I realize that like, it was very dramatic. Like,
It's okay, baby. It was a lot. But our baby's here.
Yeah, like, I mean, it was all worth it, but it was just, like it all happened so fast, like, the tail end of it. Like, the first part of it was obviously very slow, and it took forever, but I think in that moment, I didn't realize how traumatic it was for me, because I was like, this is just something that I need to do. But then, as I've been recovering and thinking about it more, like, I don't know if I would ever want to get pregnant again, because it was just so awful.
You went through so much,
and it's like after it all happened, like it just felt like a bad nightmare, you know. And like I don't remember my body experiencing that type of pain, but I think it's just like, for me now, it's, I don't want to go through surgery ever again, you know. Like and like I don't know if my body would be able to give birth vaginally, because it was supposed to. Yeah. But he was just turned the wrong way. You can't help that.
In regards to what our midwives were saying and everything, they said, like, everything you did was perfect. Like, everything you did was correct.
But that's the thing, is that, but you can't control, like...
You can't. It's uncontrollable.
Yeah, like, you can't control those things. And, like, I think I just... Yeah, I don't know if I would ever be able to... It again, yeah. Right? Yeah.
I love you, baby. It's a lot to heal from, too. Like, this whole healing process, you're still going through it.
Yeah. I mean, that's another podcast episode waiting to be made, because the recovery and, like, everything after is just a whole other... it's a whole other set of challenges, and, like...
And, I mean, just dealing with, like... I mean, with the postpartum blues and...
Yeah.
And just the... Because your hormones are changing...
Because, like, now we're recording this, like, he is 9 days old. So, just over a week. And, I mean, so much happens.
And he's amazing. He's honestly...
Yeah, he's the best baby.
So cute.
Yeah,
and like,
but he is the best. He makes it worth it.
And he's just so darn cute. I don't know if that's just us, because, like, maybe, like, parents see things in the rose-colored glasses and stuff, but he's just so cute.
He is very cute.
Yeah. He's like the perfect combination of both of us.
Yeah.
And that's, like, when they first pulled him out, like, that's what I saw, and I was just, like, so astounded, and... That's why I was, like, crying hysterically.
Yeah.
So that was our emotional, tumultuous journey that brought us to here where we actually have our baby.
So crazy that it was a planned home birth, and it was...
And it went absolutely unaccording to plan. It just
was so... Yeah, it was just so not where I thought we would end up at all. But that's birth. I mean, like, it literally never goes according to plan.
Yeah.
But I think, like, for me, like, I just read so many stories about, like, home births and, like, natural births that I was like, I can do this. Like, my body can do this. And I was, like, so ready for it. And I wouldn't say that at any point I was, like, disappointed in myself or, like, anything like that. Like, I think, like...
You can't be.
Yeah, like, I think I did everything that I possibly could have. It was just, like... I just went through a lot more pain than I think I
mean, you really gave it your all.
Felt I should have.
I'm, like, beyond grateful that you're my partner and that you managed to go through all of that.
Can't believe this is my life now.
That's it for our story, I guess. It was a gong show, to say the least. But we came out of it. Ending. We came out of it with a baby and a really cute one. So
that's him.
That's him making noises, being a part of the podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Things don't always go so according to plan, but birth is birth.
It will never go according to plan.
It will never go according to plan, but at the end of the day, like most people will tell you, it is worth it.
It is. 100% it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's no point in beating yourself up over what should have happened or what could have happened. And I had to learn to let go of that really quickly.
Yeah.
Because there's just nothing you could have done. You know, there's nothing I could have done.
It's out of your control completely.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, now I'm realizing that I have, I think, trauma for the future. But like, in this situation, in everything that happened, like, it happened the way it was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, that is what it is. So yeah, I hope that, you know, this was interesting for you to listen to. I didn't want to add another traumatic birth story out there because I feel like there are just so many and there's so much fear surrounding childbirth.
That we were gonna be that, but
yeah, but like, it was my experience. So
it's the story. It's the truth,
that's
right?
That's the story. Yeah. So.
But we came out of it with a Taurus baby,
which is like perfectly compatible with Daeon's Pisces and my Virgo. So I'll leave it at that. You can follow us on IG at Neens Deens. I'm at Your Girl Neens.
And I'm Daeon's Day Off. Our next few episodes will be about our journey so far, and we'll talk about
what the first week was like, what recovery from a C-section is like, because it is brutal. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we will see you guys later. Love you.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.